I'm going to discuss um, this evening the brutal economic reality of Reagan's combination with Ringo Starr and the help of Don Toon, and what Pitt and Carnegie Mellon pulled with the Texas School Book. Okay, I've described three mirrors. Exploring the third mirror is a complication in describing what happened. Because although the story of Adolf Hitler's escape has been around for a long time, it has never been very carefully ascribed to the circumstances and plans that played out in Dallas with the execution of JFK over Hiroshima, which is the first mirror. And even when you bring in the second mirror, which is Two Virgins Pussy Ball, clock to the AIDS attack, describing an arc of colors in defense of the institution of marriage, and showed that it was a scam that was operated by guerrilla theater. You still have to deal with the fact that the perpetrators claimed discovery on the idea of John Lennon being victimized. The third mirror is the synthesis of the spirits of Hitler and Lenin into what they call Casper. Lazarus back from the dead. Ouspensky's fourth dimensional Superman. It shows the story traces back to Britain's alliance with Italy after World War I, when Mussolini was just first showing his nose. Now, there is a lot of evidence of Axis Confederacy and what happened in Dealey Plaza. Oswald's Army ID. His various IDs have the anniversary of Pearl Harbor stamped on it, his library card. One of his IDs has the initials AH. There's people on the Warren Commission who knew Hitler and were friendly with him, sat in the Munich Olympics booth with them, forgave his campaign debts, represented the widow of his second-ranking commanding officer, and were variously considered leaders of Nazi sympathizers in America, all of whom played a role in what was done to JFK. So when you look at the situation with the diabolical animosity of Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh towards me, it comes with the help of Russia. What they did was, you see, the private corporations and the private research institute at Mellon Institute and Carnegie Mellon University had it in for the idea of public education. They considered it a feud over a penny. All property should be private, and anything public is communistic and threat. So the idea that you were considered to be awkward meant you were unwelcome. So a deaf person, because they're awkward, is unwelcome. And they arranged to have this awkwardness and unwelcome amplified by the rejection as a lover of a girl who I dated for a long time. So they sexualized the pathology over the penny in advance. And this obsessed the people who created the second mirror, because it was an offense as defense. They could point the finger at their victim. They kidnapped and tortured me. And it became a game of figure us out. Why are we getting away with this? How come the story about John Lennon is a vanishing point for all the other aspects of what happened. And of course, the profit motive is very instrumental. And they're two-tongued people who they have set up 5278 as an end game, where they are simultaneously decrying invasion of privacy by what they call technocracy and perpetuating invasion of privacy in the way that John Lennon and Yoko Ono made a repugnant film called Rape, where they abused a girl with obsessiveness, obsessive attention, and they popularized this the way that the Israelis have popularized murdering children. And the vanishing point about Lennon takes away from investigation into Mount Desert Island. How do you construe Will Zell, who proclaimed Joseph Goebbels, circulated Hitler paraphernalia, was talking about AIDS before it happened, ran a Venus flytrap that was planned from the 70s as representing the Jewish Defense League, only by rule reversal? Goebbels is now their gun for hire. And because of the vanishing point used, which is the story of John Lennon, it's very difficult to make sense of hazard tales of this racket. And it's gone on in perpetuity. And their idea of a compromise is to murder somebody who they deafened, tortured, and criminalized by scribbling my name the way Josh Shapiro wrote his name on bombs, but they forged my name on one of their bombs. And they committed, they're all accomplices in genocide. I mean, I was trying to explain how hard it is to deal with their awareness that there's another side, which they have never, ever allowed. You know, it's very difficult to accept being brutalized into Parkinson's and being targeted with sexual aggression by hotties who were there paid to deceive in order to make my name look like I was some kind of male floozy just sleeping around. And that's why they called it I Am the Walrus. They didn't take any chances. They brain damaged me as a child. They made me deaf, and they ordered me into circumstances as a child where adults were depredating on me. And then they glorified this because they, I guess, felt that that's what John Lennon would like to see done to me. And you can hear John Lennon, they say, laughing at me. So that's the situation. Of course, it's an old story, but the sandbaggers are themselves accomplice to genocide. And that's the reason why it's very important that this vanishing point for them be kept in place, that the business about London be kept in place. Because if it wasn't, people would understand that the supernova was symbolic of Gail Burson's role in the AIDS attack, that Hamas and Israel cahooted in what was done to the Palestinian people. It wasn't a slave uprising. It was, Aaron Bushnell was not a hero. He was like Michael Foucault and Sean Straub, who gave themselves AIDS. It was like a Buddha who set himself on fire because to protest abortion or something. And they have this guy named Sinwar. You would think that would be very telltale. But telltale of what? Of Gay L, who was Israeli. And they can't allow that. So they keep this burning on this vanishing point. And it drowns everything else out. And so you aren't allowed to explore the details. When you get spokesman for the administration saying that Israel was founded because of the Holocaust to the Jews. Well, that's perfectly true. That doesn't normalize what they've done in getting revenge on other innocent people, except in the eyes of this administration, who aren't about to let go of the vanishing point. So it serves their purposes perfectly clearly. Reagan and McCartney were slapping five through the whole thing because they could use John Lennon as a piece of incense in the shrine, that the smell of which sweetened everything else because everything else just went away. And they, so they have no need to address any of the other issues. So it's pointless to bring up any of the other issues because they have an override switch. You don't need to. There's nothing you need to know about the attorneys for the Gail Burstyn and Reagan being the same people. There's nothing you need to know about a lookalike of Gail Burstyn appearing on the cover of one of Paul McCartney's friends' records before any of this went on. There's nothing you need to know about any of that.